we just started talking about creating a web front end, or actually a web back end to this application. So instead of running from the console, we're going to put together a version that runs as a website. And we're basically going to write a web server in Python to supply the backend for the website. We're going to use Flask to do that. And I showed you how to install Flask last time. The key is pip install Flask. And if you do that, you'll also get the Jinja templating system. So let's jump in with the actual deliverables for lab 4. So I'm going to go to lab 4 instructions. And basically, you're going to create a web front end or web interface for your system from lab 3. So lab 3, you built an account manager, password manager that runs from the console. This time, you're going to build a web interface for that. But you're going to do it in such a way that you're basically not going to be touching any of the code from the logic class or the database class. So if your program was already working, it will continue to work. It will just work either by running a console-based version that has a console UI or a web-based version that has a web UI. Because we've used N-tier architecture where one of the tiers is a presentation layer that just encapsulates the user interface, the logic and database portion should be the same for both of those interfaces. And if we do need to add anything to the logic layer or the database layer, we're going to do it in such a way that the other interface continues to work. So basically, the logic and the database will be a superset of the functionality that any particular interface needs, but all the different interfaces will all be supported. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a Flask interface. I specify that you should listen for connection on port 8000. There's an option in Flask that will let you do that. As I said, you should be able to run either your existing password manager .py interface or the new password manager web.py interface that we're going to be building in Flask. And then you should also include a templates folder with Jinja templates and a static folder with static images. Now, I mentioned this last time and I'll repeat it. So this isn't a course on HTML or CSS or JavaScript. And so as much as I would like to teach you lots of cool things about that, I'm mainly going to focus on the Python part and keep the rest of the project as simple as possible. And then if we do have some more time, I want to show you how to use a technology called Ajax, which is asynchronous JavaScript and XML that allows you to build websites that are more dynamic and use JavaScript to fetch content from a backend web server without changing the page. So if you've ever run something that's called a single page application, or you loaded up a web page and there were cool widgets in it that you could interact with that were fetching information from the back end or doing anything, updating account information or whatever, without actually changing the page, that was using a technology called Ajax. And if we have time, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. But the main focus is going to be on keeping this as simple as possible as far as the web stuff goes. And so you'll see what I mean when we get to that. And then structure of the project, most of this is the same as your lab 3. You're going to have a new password manager web.py file. You're going to have a templates folder with some Jinja templates, and you're going to have a static folder, which is the default location for any static content that you want to serve out of your website. And that would include things like some static web pages, static JavaScript files, CSS style sheet documents, Any images that you want to have on your website, or if you want to have audio on your website, you could put all of that in a static folder and it would automatically get served by the Flask framework. And if you want to do something beyond that, you're perfectly welcome to. I'm just not going to require you to do that.